Hi, we're here with Elaine Giguere, who is the Executive Director of the Delaware Valley Arts Alliance in the Upper Delaware Valley in Narrowsburg, New York. Talking to her in the gallery here in the center that she has steered for several years here now. Welcome to Time to Inspire.
Thank you. Yeah, a few years, this is my 41st.
Wow. Okay. So there's some commitment. Okay, 41 years. So what was here when you got here 41 years ago?
What was here? Artistically, not much. I ended up, I came here, my husband, who was not yet my husband, was trying to lure me up here. I was in the city at the time. And so he brought me to a cultural event, and which ended up to be a talent show at the school. And weirdly enough, I mean, he was very sophisticated in the arts, which is how I met him in the first place. He was a consultant, a theater consultant, and taught music and lighting and stage design at Juilliard. So, but he thought this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. All right, we're going to go to this talent show, and we did. And I said, "That's it, huh?"
This is what you want me to see.
And while it was, I understood his enthusiasm for it, because he had been through many phases of his own life in terms of New York City and pressure jobs, and ending with working with an architectural firm that did consulting for theaters, including like Sydney Opera House, I mean, big stuff where
Right.
he was traveling all the time. And so we met actually. He was doing a study for the New York State Council on the Arts, and he was trying to study, everything was concentrated in New York City at that time,
Right.
all the arts. And so he was studying Staten Island, and I happened to be running a dance company there out of Wagner College. And because at the time the bridge wasn't there, so Staten Island could have been any place upstate New York at that time. It was very
Right.
unsophisticated and not overdeveloped, and it was easy to. It was like a microcosm of upstate New York, basically. And so that's how we met, and basically shortly after that he had his apartment went co-op. He was going through a divorce. It was just one of those big life blowing up kind of things. And he had property here already, had property here for 10 years. So he decided to move here.
Yeah.
Just left everything behind and moved here.
Wow.
So was trying to create a life for himself, and he was going to give up everything that he knew and sell bait.
That is a drastic life change. And he said, "Come with me."
Come with me. And first it was like, come and look at the place and you'll love it. And anyway, a couple of days in the river picking Helgramites was not my idea of what I wanted to do. So eventually, though, I started enjoying the place, and by weird coincidence, one of my college roommates had grown up in Callicoon. So I knew about the area, but had no clue where it was or how it. I kept saying, "Well, what's it near?" And even now, most people don't know where Narrowsburg is, or because it's a half hour off of a main road, but it's still only
Right.
2 hours from the George Washington. So it has kept its very rural nature, and that's been both a blessing and a curse in the sense of it's very hard to pull off an economic base and job,
Sure.
but it's still a lifestyle that's very enticing. You know,
Right.
it's seductive. It's the more you hear, the more you want to be here.
Right. So, how do you go from teaching dance at a college to having maybe weekends or vacation on the Delaware in Narrowsburg to starting a major arts center that promotes the arts in a region where, like you said, going to a high school or to a community variety show?
Well, we had shortly after I made the change. I mean, my life was getting equally complicated because I was doing a lot of choreography and I was teaching in 3 boroughs, which, you know, some days I'd sit on the subway and go, what day is it? Where am I going? And I did a lot of teaching, and then in the summers I was teaching at the American Dance Conference, and at the time it was in Connecticut. Now it's in North Carolina, and at Harvard. And
Whoa.
so, you know, it all got a little schizophrenic there, and you know, I think I started out not wanting to be necessarily a professional anything, except I wanted to understand my craft in a very deep way, and then I wanted to be able to go someplace where choreographers, dancers weren't a dime a dozen. Right. So in some ways it was fulfilling some of what I needed in terms, I mean, I didn't expect to come into a place that was quite so small, even though I'm from Maine. I lived in a city in Maine. It's like, and it was difficult to do what I was doing here because you'd have 2 or 3, you know, the people didn't own 2 cars, and you know, so you'd have 2 or 3 kids in Narrowsburg who were extremely talented, 2 or 3 kids in Calico, maybe in Beach Lake, and it was the nature of dance and learning it is that you need the you need the energy of the other students to compete with yourself. You know, it's like a sport, or there's both teamwork and then there's also competing with yourself in terms of improving your technique and your understanding of what you're doing. So, but I did it, and I ended up, besides teaching, my husband, I think, got the idea that I wasn't going to sell bait, and, I think he missed he missed that crazy life.
Right.
And
got too quiet.
Yeah, and so he suggested to the Tustin Bicentennial Committee that there be a cultural committee of the bicentennial. Right. So we started, with a bang. It was, workshops and how to do costumes and, putting on 1776 or helping on the back end of that. Right. And doing an instant museum, and wow. And it just took off from there. And at the end of that cycle, basically people said, we don't really want to stop. This is fun. Yeah, this is fun. we want to do it, and we want this to continue. So that's when the Delaware Valley Arts Alliance was formed. We had I think it was in February, some cold month anyway, in Tustin Theater before it was renovated. About 90 people showed up, and we had a town meeting, and wow. Essentially people said, we want this. And so the bicentennial chairman at that time just sort of declared that there should be one, and that's what happened.
That was easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we bounced around. We were in the building across the street, and which was a rental, a very generous agreement with the landlady who had to. It was a single zone heat system,
Right.
so she had to heat the whole building anyway. So she gave us a nice deal on the rent,
Wow.
and then we ended up. Tom died 2 years after that, and I was asked by the board to continue in his place. And I thought I'd do it for a year or two, but it ended up obviously to be a lot longer.
Those 2 years are still going.
2 years are,
Yeah.
I've stretched into nearly 42 at this point.
Well, it's a multiple of 2.
Yeah. So when DVAA was 5 years old, the building that we were in was for sale. I think pretty much all the buildings on the street were for sale at that point or close to it. And we decided we needed a home, and we ended up buying for $1 down the building that we're in. We liked the idea that it was a historic building. We made a deal with the Park Service, who and said, it's a historic building, wouldn't you like to be there and pay rent?
Sure.
And the superintendent at the time was very sensitive to community development and historic preservation, and was really thrilled that we were going to take this on.
Right.
You have to remember understand that the building at the time was red, white, and blue.
Oh, wow. From the
Well, it was
bicentennial.
blue.
Yeah.
It was blue with red and white trim.
Yeah.
So there was a lot to be done to sort of get it back to some kind of historical, and we're still poking at it. And that was in 1981, and we're poking at it still. Yeah.
So now, what all have you? I mean, it started with the bicentennial, and then it moved into an actual arts center that people wanted.
Mm-hmm.
What all does that include now? I mean, I know you have like a writing group here. You have opera.
Right.
You have.
Well, the mostly it was sort of digging up who was here. It was hard to tell, so we were doing a little bit of everything to see who would come out, and they were writers, and they were, there were some people who had ended up here who were, FIT graduates and did puppetry, and so it was. Once all of those people started to get identified, then we started doing programmatically. We did a lot of it. It was very hands-on at the beginning. We were producing opera for 10 years because people wanted to sing, and there was no opera company. So after 10 years, and they wanted to do more, and we wanted to do less because it's really not what we were about. We suggested to them that they become an opera company. Chamber music group developed out of DVAA as well at the time, and so we were like an incubator for a long time, and then of course the building then started to dictate other things to us, which was the gallery, of course, just in the way it was designed. The building was designed. Visual arts was really not our primary thrust at that time. We did a lot of performing arts stuff, we were in Callicoon doing it in the theater there. We did a couple of churches. We were in Monticello, but because I knew very little about visual arts, I gathered together some visual artists, and they became like the jurors and the curators for the first few years, and then we hired somebody. So we could keep it going, and because I guess I was a professional, I wanted professionals in other disciplines to take us as seriously, in their own discipline.
Right.
And they were pretty cagey. They'd come in and ask these questions that they wouldn't tell you they were an artist, but they'd ask you these questions about how, what we did, who we knew, kind of thing. And so it was you know, it ended up to be a great thing, and as you can see, you know, every year we find new artists, and that's what's kept me here. Really, is that it just hasn't been boring. There's new artists every week. We meet somebody new, you know, so it's great.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
So, I don't think I'll give away any secrets now, but it's been 42 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you're ready to hand that over to, the 2 years is up, and you look kind of like maybe somebody else should take it for a while.
Yeah, it's taken us a while, but I feel like we're in a good place now to swap out. We have a new program director, because for many years I was just about every different hat every day, you know, basically,
Oh, sure,
or 3 times a day, and now we have a program director in place. So she has taken a hunk of that work off of my job, and which nobody would have taken otherwise. And we've got candidates already starting to come through, and I'm looking forward to the next. You know, it just needs it needs some new energy to just sort of move it forward.
Right.
Many things here I love still, and I'm going to miss very much, but for the sake of the organization, and I think the art that's going to come through here,
Right.
I think it's time for some new energy.
Right. And it sounds like you have a plan that's kind of interesting. You were talking about that the first, well, you've talked to me a little bit about what you want to do next.
Right.
It kind of builds on what you were talking about when you first came here, of kind of scouring the bushes and seeing what creative forces were here.
Yeah.
And now the project that you've been talking to me about is a project to track the history of the creative flow to this area?
Right. At first I thought, you know, well, part of it, you have some discussions from octogenarian artists who said, we don't have any children, we have a ton of art,
right.
What are we going to do? You know, and we don't want it to end up in the dumpster. And at first the conversation ran around, you know, how would we store it? Can we build a building? And for me, that I just couldn't see that would work, because then it's in a building, and
it's
then
still
what?
A physical place.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're gonna run out of room.
So I thought of it more in terms of a digital internet project where the work would be recorded, their migration to the area and how the area influenced their work would be recorded, and then there would be a way, hopefully, to pitch it to young curators,
right? So
that they, you know, it would say, you know, where the pieces are, who owns them, how you can get them, you know, so that the work stays alive in that way. I mean, other than being in a warehouse that nobody knows about.
Right.
So I think it's huge, really, because it would include art historians and, you know, obviously people who can do really wonderful digital photography. I mean, they'll have some of that stuff, the artists themselves,
sure.
But we're that's what's coming up.
That is a fantastic project. I wish you the best with that. And I mean, you may be getting help out there here. Somebody sees this interview.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Bring you up here for a little while.
I announced it at some event not too long ago, and a couple people came forward who, you know, just said that, you know, I think that would be fun. So
you're off and running.
I'm off and running. Probably have to find 100 grants to make it actually viable.
Well, you rolled up your sleeves enough for that. There's no problem.
Right.
Thank you, Elaine, for talking to us today, and good luck with that project. And
Yeah.
thank you for your service here to the area with the Delaware Valley Arts Alliance.
Yeah, it seems like.
And thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.